Now that I am done with my interior shots and my scenes, and I am supposedly ready to start producing my presentation, before I go ahead and do that, we need a plan in a section, obviously. And Rhino offers me this wonderful feature that it allows automatic cutting through the model, whether horizontally or vertically, in order to produce 3D plans and sections as of the design that I am proposing in my project. Now, the way Rhino works with these cuts, or in general, most 3D images or most 3D processing softwares or 3D modeling softwares, deal with these cuts as planes. So you show the software the plane according to which you want the cut to be, and then you start moving that plane up and down or back and front in order to locate the cut location or the cutting line for that software. So to do that, I'm going to initiate it by typing the command on the command line. Quite frankly, I don't know where you find them in the commands or in the icons. Please feel free to look for them. Right now, I'm just going to use the command line because I find this easier. I'm going to type clipping. I'm going to type clipping plane. So it's called a clipping plane. And I'm going to hit the enter button. So you can see that it's asking me to define the plane by defining a rectangle. So first corner of the rectangle. I'm going to go ahead to the top view simply because I'm going to start with a plan, and I'm going to place it from this corner to that corner across the entire building. Remember that whenever we're drawing a plan, the cut has to be through the entire building. We don't cut through one space and leave the other one. So we're cutting through the entire building. We're slicing through the entire building. It's just like a cake. So I'm going to make the rectangle slightly bigger than my plane or my cutting or my object, just so I can make sure that the cut is taking place across the entire subject and it's not just, entire object, and it's not just within a selected piece of the building. Now I'm going to click on the other corner to define that I want my rectangle to be within this plane. Now next is, you can see that right here, if I choose this plane, this properties automatically change to what view do you want that plane to take effect on. You can make it on multiple views, so you can make that plan on all the views, or that plane, cutting plane, to affect all the views, or you can just make it affect one or two of the views that you want. You can do whatever you want, whatever makes you comfortable with your design. I can also flip the direction, so instead of removing the upper part, it is now removing the lower part. Obviously, since we're looking at a plan and not a reflected ceiling plan, we need to flip this again so that we're looking at the floor level. Now the next problem is, let me change that to perspective. So I'm going to go to set view and choose perspective, just so it is a bit clearer and we can see clearly what we're doing. So you can see that now I have a plan which looks like pretty much a 2D plan. However, a lot of these objects are missing, and it's too much of a 2D because we're now producing a 3D plan. I'm just going to remove the front and right because they're not going to take effect on that. And now I'm just going to select my plane and then move it. So I'm going to type M for move. And from the right view, I'm going to move it from the bottom up in a straight line, or a vertical line that doesn't, a straight vertical line. And I'm going to choose, and notice how when I move it, the cutting location is changing. I can either place it above the object, which doesn't really make sense. I can make it right below the ceiling, which also doesn't make much sense. We normally, or the common practices, allow the cutting plane to pass through the windows. So you can look at my perspective and keep an eye on the perspective view and notice how I'm cutting now through the windows and the doors to give more information of the plan. Once I'm happy, I'll just locate my object, and voila, you're done with your plan, with your 3D plan. You can edit it, you can change the direction, and once you're done, of course, you can render it. Now, before we move forward, I would like to note that sometimes you will have open spaces. Let me just zoom in to show you right here. If that is the case, then that's fine. You don't have to repeat the entire model. You can simply take it to one of the photo editing software such as Photoshop and edit it on Photoshop. Just fill it in with black. Either way, you always have to take it back to Photoshop to have the post rendering effects And to understand that, please refer to the Photoshop tutorials that were already uploaded before and go through them to know how we can add the hatch, for instance. Right now it's a white hatch and we want it to be black or gray. You can add figures and silhouettes of people inside, and this is what you should do. You can also add skill references such as a tree or car or a surrounding environment on Photoshop, just to make things look more in perspective and to make them look more realistic and to give us a better experience of the space. Now, once I'm done with the plan, I can either delete the entire plane or I can just simply hide it and continue working with my objects if it's annoying me. Alternatively, I'm just gonna unhide it and I'm gonna delete it right now. Alternatively, I can also rotate it so that I work with a section instead. So I'm gonna rotate this from the right view and I will rotate it 90 degrees so that I start working with a section instead. And you can notice here that I am working with a section that is placed outside of my object, and to help that I need to go to my plan view and move it so that it is within my plan. You can see, let me just flip that so you can see it clearly from this view. You can see that I'm now moving the section so that I can see what's inside the space. You can clearly see the thicknesses of the walls. Sometimes problems happen with the modeling. You can see that the wall is penetrating the slab, and that never happens in construction, and therefore this can be fixed with Photoshop. Either way, we don't really recommend having these thick black lines with white hatch inside because they simply don't represent proper cutting. You always have, again, to take it to Photoshop or to edit your image on a photo editing software and fill in the hatch, add people using the space, show us how the space is being used for more details. Of course, you can also edit the lights and the shade and shadow that sometimes are off with the rendering software on Photoshop or in any photo editing software. Now, one thing that we need to note before ending this tutorial is that we are using the basic Rhino rendering feature. However, this feature is not the most accurate feature. We can always add plugins that enhance the processes of shade and shadow and therefore produce more realistic images, such as V-Ray, Grasshopper, Arnold, and so on. Some of these plugins or add-ons are paid and require licenses. Some of them are free and available to everyone. Some of them also offer licenses to students, some don't. So please choose whatever you find best for better rendering plugins. At this level now, it's okay to use just the Rhino, the basic Rhino renderer. And of course, as you progress further, you need to go ahead and start learning the plugins that are used for rendering for better outcome and better images. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, let me know, and that applies to any of the previous tutorials as well. Thank you very much and happy rendering.